You probably heard about the opioid crisis that was going on, that is killing millions of people. So because of all of the litigation and the malpractice suits that have been filed on behalf of patients who were basically saying, like, as a physician, you got me addicted to these opioids and you never gave me a way to get off of them. And so, like, because of that, like, physicians are less likely to prescribe opioids in a way that they prescribed them before. You know, in my opinion, they were giving them out as if they were Flintstone vitamins. And I'm not saying that because I'm on the other side of this. I'm saying that because I was always the person having to say, this person just got a prescription 3 days ago. And so in that regard, that's changed because the legislation around that has changed. But as far as other things, I'm seeing the same prescribing habits. I see patients who are tired of the healthcare system and come to me and say, hey, I'm on 19 different medications. Is there anything that you can do for me? And I'm seeing the same issues with that same regimen, meaning duplicate prescriptions for the same illness. I'm seeing side effects as a result of mixing medications that shouldn't be mixed together. So unfortunately, I in some areas it's been improved, and then in some areas it's really just the same song.
Wow, that's depressing. And actually, I read somewhere a couple months ago that though the opioid prescribing has gone down, it's still sort of shocking how high it still is given the risks. And I'm sure you've seen that as well. So what advice would you give to people, given all of your experience and everything that you've learned? What would you say they should do if they're offered a prescription or they're prescribed something and they're really not sure about whether they should start it or take it?
Ooh, man. So that's a loaded question with a lot of legality behind it. So
I know you have to say like what's appropriate.
yeah,
So
it's
say,
gonna be a
say
very
that, get that out of the way, and then tell us
yeah.
more.
So it's going to be a very political answer, unfortunately. But what I can tell people is that choose your physician carefully. Okay. There you can choose a ND, which is a naturopathic doctor. You can choose a doctor who's more in alignment with how you want to be healed. And so I always tell people first start with that. Okay. So that way they can always help you navigate that process. Okay. Because one person's situation isn't the same as another person's situation. You may have somebody who has a completely deteriorated pancreas and they're producing no insulin. So the advice I would give that person versus the advice I would get a person who has a functioning pancreas is very different. So I can't give like a blank answer because it's, first of all, it's irresponsible. And second of all, it's a mess. But what I can tell people is that it's like I said before, make sure you ask questions. Okay. Let's say, for instance, like it's high blood pressure. There are stages of high blood pressures. There's pre-hypertension, there's stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, so forth. Okay. And within each stage, there's a blood pressure range that is sort of in alignment with each stage. Okay. Now, if you're one of the persons who are pre-hypertensive, then what I would urge you to understand is if you're pre-hypertensive, that means that your blood pressure is just above the normal, okay? For most of those people, they can make the lifestyle changes, even stage 1 can make the lifestyle changes necessary to sort of lower their blood pressure, okay? Now, when you creep up into the hypertensive crisis type of patients, those are the people who need somebody to guide them along the way. And I say that because you don't want to be eating cucumbers and thinking that your blood pressure is better and it's not, and you have a stroke. That's the worst thing could happen for that type of person. So you need somebody who can guide you along the way. So get guidance in that area. If you want to take a more natural route, for most people, you know, I'm just being honest, most people don't know enough about food. I mean, I always get that question, like, you know, people are like, well, I see you're not eating meat. Or do you not eat meat? And no, I don't eat meat. And they ask why. And I was like, make sure you eat healthy. And they're like, oh, I eat really healthy. And then I ask them what they eat. And I'm like, no, that's not healthy. Just think about it. When you go to your doctor, the advice that they give is really layman's advice when it comes to nutrition, because nutrition isn't required as a course in medical school. So the advice they're giving you is layman's advice. Okay. So take that in consideration. That's your doctor. You have to be humble yourself and ask yourself, what do I know about nutrition? And so if you don't know enough, you need guidance. And so I just recommend that people get guidance in that area, because, it's not always as easy to navigate those waters as people would like it to be.
I have had many experiences like that myself, where sometimes I think if somebody tells me they quote unquote eat healthy, they don't eat healthy.
Right.
Because just the idea that they're saying that to me is such a lack of understanding about how eating and nutrition works, which is that you could have a certain diet one week and have a completely different diet the next week because of being on the go or forgetting to, go to the store when you were planning to, or because you were traveling that week. And your whole biology and physiology can change week to week, day to day. Like it took you 17 days to change your, hereditary, quote unquote, condition that you'd had for, it sounds like, over a decade. I mean, that's crazy. So to think that you can just kind of give a blanket that you eat healthy when it probably does change so much throughout different phases of your life. And also, if you eat meals that are not prepared by you, you kind of only have a general sense of what's in them, but you don't really know much. And so you're not even at liberty to answer that question if you're eating out quite a bit, because you don't really know what you're eating.
Yep.
Especially if you're, buying non-organic things where there could be, over 100 chemicals or 100 fertilizers and pesticides that are made from chemicals on a particular piece of produce. I mean, that's crazy. It's hard to imagine. Right. So really, we have only a small idea of when we're holding, a non-organic cucumber, that this is a cucumber, but it's one of like 100 things that you're holding.
Right.
So I think that is so true. And I've seen that so much as far as like a real lack of understanding about what eating healthy means. And then usually because they got that information from people they thought they were supposed to trust, right? It's like if you don't do your own research, or you don't go deeper to find people like you and find people that we've, other experts on the Wellbe platform that we've had before, that it's coming from a doctor who's not trained to talk about it, or it's coming from like People Magazine, who, again, layman's terms, misinformation, all that stuff. So basically your sources are just kind of not qualified to be sources. And therefore it's always going to be outdated and always kind of be, erring on whatever's going to sell the most food.
Yeah. And I understand that although as humans, we're very similar. We all have 2 kidneys and 2 lungs and 1 heart and, so forth and so on. We're very different in our biology and our biochemistry. And so you can't give the same advice to one person that you give to another, because people are at a different stage in their journey in their biology and their biochemistry. Some people are very healthy. Some people are very unhealthy. Some people have hereditary things like I did. Some people don't. And so you can't give everybody this fixed advice and expect everybody to do well with that advice. And that's why I mean by make sure you get somebody to guide you along the process, is because everybody has this cookie cutter information that they're giving out to everybody, but it doesn't work for everybody. Everybody is different. The same way we all have different fingerprints, we do have some unique biochemistry and biologies that sort of separate us from each other and make us special.
As you were saying that, I was just thinking, as a nice way to sort of wrap up too, since we're getting to the end of our time together, the only thing that we know for sure is good for everybody as far as food are plants. Not every single plant, but at least, we know for sure green vegetables and, that kind of thing. And most nuts and seeds and that. So that's the commonality between us. And that's kind of what you've dedicated your life to. And I think it's the most powerful thing we have. It's medicinal, whether it's in herb form or in food form. And for the modern toxic world that we're living in, it's also kind of the only answer.